So it's Monday. Ooh, October 1st. Today's October 1st. October's a good month. The end of the month, it's Halloween. You knock on the door, they give you candy. It's a good month. All right, so today we are working with ranges and cells. We're going to download census.xls, and that's going to be our working file for today. So more data from the Census Bureau. Why is it? This again. So this data, here, but someone look at this data and tell me something about the data. You know, something that of moderate interest about this data. Just yell it out. We've got a lot of rows. There's a bunch of data here. You know, it's not big data, but it's it's not a trivial amount of data. Okay, so that's interesting. We look at the column labels here, and here's one H290208. So what does that mean? In fact, the information is here in the workbook. Someone figure out what that means. You're guessing, and I'm not looking for a guess. It's a fun guess. No, it's not milliseconds. But look at, somewhere in this workbook is the answer to that question. This is the workbook I just downloaded from the United States Census Bureau, some time ago. Go ahead.
The resident population under 18.
Resident population under 18. How do you know that? Aha! There's a tab called Data Dictionary. And that same thing, what was it? Age. This one right here. Up one more. So that's the resident population under 18 years, July 1st estimate, 2008. So so each one of those labels, so we look at the data over here on the data set tab, each one of these columns has information about a particular, so all of these numbers are answers to the same question that are in this column. And the question, or the data value, the variable, is described over here. You can look at that name, you can look over here on Data Dictionary, and you can see what that is, and that's the data, resident population, whatever. Number of births in 2006, that's VSTO, whatever that number is. Okay, so now we got the idea for what the columns are. So what are the rows? Any ideas? So there's something about counties. Yeah, in fact, we can tell here, if we look at column A, it's got this ANSI number, American National Standards Institute, I think is what ANSI stands for. And if we come down here, we've got these numbers. So let's just look at like 1003. If I come over here to county names and control home, I look for 1003, that's Baldwin County, Alabama. And so that's the reference to, that tells you which county it is. Then there's some kind of data flags, which I think this is like footnotes for the data. This probably corresponds exactly with the data set tab. So we have an intersection of a particular county and a particular variable. What do we have here? So here's footnote 7. So when you're looking at the corresponding number here in Z15 on the data set tab, on Z16 on the data set tab, there's a footnote that goes along with that. And what's that footnote? Flags, maybe Flags Dictionary? 7. Value greater than 0, but less than the unit of measure shown. They're just saying it's really, really small, but it's non-zero. So that's what that footnote means. So my guess is, if we go back over here and look at Z16, yeah, it says 0, but there's a footnote. That's not really 0. It's some small number greater than 0. But 0 is the best approximation we have for it there. And then other text about other various footnotes, apparently. Okay. What do you think? If you had to answer a question about some of this data, would this be an easy file to work with or a hard file to work with? This is a hard file to work with. Yeah, the data really isn't organized very well for us to be able to do any kind of analysis with it or any kind of comparison. What I really would like to be able to do is I would like to be able to say, listen, I want to compare 2 counties on all of these statistics. I want to compare Utah County with Salt Lake County, or I want to compare Los Angeles County. What county is Los Angeles in? Los Angeles County with New York County. So I want to pick 2 counties and be able to see, or 4 counties, arbitrary number of counties, and I want to be able to see that data in such a way that I can look at it and go, aha, look at the number of births in Los Angeles County compared to New York County, or the average, the birth per capita or something, and be able to look at those and compare them. And maybe even make charts on them. Can you imagine trying to make a chart out of this data? Ugh. So how could we do it? Might it involve VBA? Yeah, I think it would. So our whole goal today is, well, we have 2 goals. So we're gonna be able to develop a tool that will let us look at this data pretty easily and to get some experience working with ranges. And so the chapter for today is working with cells, working with ranges. And so let's go ahead and dive in. First thing to do is notice this file is an XLS file. Normally, when you just get an Excel data file, it's an XLS X, or if it has macros in it, it's a macro-enabled workbook, XLSM. What is an XLS? Yeah, it's just old. It's prior to the 2007 format. Now, I downloaded this way after 2007, but that's just the format that the Census Bureau gave it out in. And so it's still kind of common in automatically generated Excel files to have it be the old format, XLS format. Can you have macros in an XLS workbook? Yes, you can. In fact, it's somewhat dangerous because you really can't look at the file extension and say, oh, there's macros in here or there isn't macros in here. The reason that they switched to the 2 different formats, XLSX for non-macro workbooks and XLSM for macro workbooks. So let's go ahead and save this as an XLSM. And you'll notice here at XLSX it says we're in compatibility mode. How many rows are there in a workbook normally? 1.4 million. How many rows are there in this workbook? Yeah, 65,000. Because this is in compatibility mode. If this was an XLS workbook, if this was Excel the way Excel used to be when XLS was the normal standard, that would be your limitation. So I'm going to do a file save as. I'm going to call this census. Actually, I'm going to call it census. So I can keep it track of my other examples. I'm going to call it fall of 18. Call whatever you want as long as you make an XLS. I will save. Oh, it's an XLSM. It's a normal workbook. But you'll notice because it was open in XLSX, it's still showing up as in compatibility mode. And so I'm going to go ahead and close it and reopen it. And then it'll be open in regular mode. So now I've got more than 65,000 rows. 1.04 million. Wonderful. We don't need them all, but it's nice to be on the same page. So I would like to be able to look at, here's a row of data. This is data about one county across all the variables. I want to be able to look at that and compare it easily to another county. That's where we're headed. I think the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves kind of a working sheet. So why don't I make a new worksheet called Compare. I'll just name this worksheet Compare. And I'm putting it in the first position just because I like to know where it is. It doesn't really matter where you put it. And then let me come over to the data dictionary and I'm just going to copy, copy column B. And I'm going to paste it into column A of my compare worksheet. So now I've got the verbal descriptions of what all of these different values are. So it would be pretty nice, probably don't need the word description in here, so I'll delete out what's in A1. And then ultimately what I'd like to do is I would like to get this to come in here and say, I guess I'd like to see here Utah, and then Juab County. Is that how you say it? Anyone from Juab County? Did I say it right? And I want to compare that to some smaller county. No, so just some other small county, some other state. I don't know what a small county is. That's in this state. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Utah, Box Elder County. And I would just like to be able to see all the numbers right in here. That's what I would like. Now, so the first thing that I've realized already is that this is going to be a problem because I don't know the names of these counties. How am I going to pick these counties? What shall I do to make it somewhat easier for the user to pick the counties that they want to be able to see? Any thoughts? Go ahead. We can make a drop-down list. How do we do that? Okay, so there's one approach called data validation. So if I come over here to data, there's something like data validation. Is it over here? Is this where it is? Data, I don't know. Data validation. Now, if I do data validation, I'll go ahead and select this. It says, listen, what cell do you want to put it on? What value do you want it? Just choose it from a list. I can then specify the list where all the possible choices are. This would work pretty well. This is one way to do it, and we could make it work this way. I'm going to show you a different way to do it. So anyone know the other way? To make a drop-down list. This is one way to build a drop-down list into a cell. Another way is to build a drop-down object and then just place that onto the worksheet. It doesn't go into any cell. It just sits on top of the cell like a button would or like a picture or anything else. So we'll do that one. It has, for this particular example, it's a little bit nicer, and you'll see why. So I'm going to come to the Developer tab. And right here on my little toolbox, insert here, I am going to choose not the first one, that's the button, we've played with that one, but the next one over is called a combo box. There are two combo boxes, folks. There's one right here under Form Controls and one under ActiveX Controls. Don't use the ActiveX one. It's more powerful, but it's not as pretty, and it's not as easy to work with. So to follow this example, we'll have to do the Form Control one. It's really simple to use. So I'll select that, and then I'm going to draw it into here. So I'm going to come over here and draw that drop-down box onto my worksheet. Now, if I right-click this, I have Format Control. So this is how I get this configured as to what's going to be in this control. So I'll choose Format Control, and it's going to give me a couple of choices. So here's the input range. Input range is where does the data come from? Well, where does this data come from? It comes from my county names sheet. So I'll select county names. And the only thing I've done to this data after I got it from the Census Bureau before I gave it to you is I created one column here that had the name of the county and the state combined together. That's because you basically get one column to get your data to show here. So I'm just going to choose, maybe we can just choose column D. I'm not sure that's a good idea or not. I'm going to choose the specific range. So D1 to D3196. Now, so that's going to be where the list comes from. Now we have to have some way to be able to know which of all these was selected. And that's what the cell link is for. So when I choose cell link, it's going to say, tell me the cell that I'm going to communicate back to the worksheet about which one the user selected. I'll just put that in A1. And then how many lines do I want to drop down? 8's probably enough, but I don't know. I'll bump it up to 20. Just how big is the drop-down list going to be when it drops down? Look at this 3D shading. Do we want 3D shading? Whoa. And I'll say, okay, I turned on 3D shading. I'm pretty excited about it. Look at that. It looks like it's etched down into the worksheet. That is, wow. Okay, now that I click off of it, I can click back on it, and this should be just a drop-down list. I can scroll through it, and pick Anoka, Minnesota. I think I had a child born in Anoka County, Minnesota. That's where I did my doctoral studies, University of Minnesota. Actually, I think it was Ramsey County, anyway. Now, what has it put here? I told the cell link to be number A1. What did it put in A1? 1,339. You might think it's the row that the data came from, but it's not quite the row. Let me come to the very first one. Let me choose like Baldwin, Alabama. That gives me a 4. So what is this? If I come back over to county names and I go find Baldwin, Alabama, where's Baldwin, Alabama? Ah, there it is, Baldwin. It's on row 4. Is it the row number? It's coincidentally the row number because this data set starts on row 1. It's actually its position in the list. So if this data started on row 2 or 3, it wouldn't be the row number, but here it is the row number. It's a happy coincidence, so that's fine. Okay, so that's how the user is going to communicate to us which cell they would like to, or which county they would like the information for. Okay. So far, so good. Are we okay? You're with me? All right. This next part is going to be a little bit different. So let's go ahead and create a procedure that starts to get us bringing the information in. So when someone chooses Bibb, Alabama, that process of doing that, we want it to actually put here in B1, Alabama, and then in B2, Bibb. So let's go ahead and create a subprocedure. I'll press Alt F11 to bring up my code editor. I guess I'll view my Project Explorer. Oh, that is my Project Explorer. I will insert a module. I'll bring my Project Explorer down here. I like to normally have it at the left. I feel more comfortable already. And let's create a subprocedure. Sub show county county data. You feel free to call that whatever you want. You got to have some name. All right. So how are we going to get, once the user has made that choice, how are we going to pull over the state name? What's going to be the process? Talk to me in English. What shall I do? Go ahead. Is the value stored in a list? Could I just somehow pull it off the list? The answer is it's stored there, but there's no way for me to access that through VBA. That may or may not be true. For sure, if we were using the other list, the ActiveX control, we could just go and refer to the information right in the list. Let's not, since we're trying to get more experience with ranges here. Go ahead. Okay, so okay, I like it so far. So you're saying look in cell A1, and then that tells me 6. What do I do with the 6? Yeah, then use that to go pull the data off of the county names sheet. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and make a variable here so we know about variables. I'll dim county, C-O-N-T, county, I'll just call it county. Dim county as, what should I use? What data type should I use? Variant. Okay, this is actually going to be the county number. So let's call this county underscore NO. As, what do you think? Byte? Would byte do it for me? No, because there's like 3,000 of them. So what's my next choice? Integer. Will that do it? Yeah, it's plus or minus 32,000. There's only 3,000 of them. That's okay. Dim county is integer. And let me go ahead and read that in. I'll read that into the variable. So, since I'm working with multiple different sheets here, let me introduce you to something that I don't think we've looked at yet. So each of our worksheets has 2 names. Did we talk about the 2 names that a worksheet has? Let me see if I can get my properties window to dock over here where I want it to dock. Dock, you properties window. There we go. All right, so in my Project Explorer, I'm just going to select the sheet that says dataset on it. Is that right? Yeah. It's called dataset. That's the sheet name right here on the tab. But if I look at that, can I zoom in? Windows plus. So if I look here, it says dataset in my Project Explorer dataset, but then it also says data right here. And if I come down a little bit lower, we'll see in the properties window, if I have data selected, down here in the properties window, it has a name here, and the name here is data. I can actually refer to this worksheet through code using either of those 2 names. One's data set and one's data. Data down here, this name, the actual name of this property is the code name. That's the name that I can refer to this worksheet directly in through code. If I want to refer to it by its name, data set, I have to say out of all the sheets, the one that bears the name data set. But this name down here is the name that goes directly to that object. It's pretty slick. So I can just refer to that as data. I can just come here and say county number equals data dot. That is the code name of that worksheet. Data dot cells or dot range A1 dot value. Okay, so I've read in the county number. We may want a county name variable, we may not. But that at least gets us to that gives us that county number. Now let me go ahead and see kind of another way to refer to a worksheet. Dim S, we've done this a couple times now. Dim S has a worksheet. Set S equal to, out of all the worksheets, the one name, what did I call it? Summary? I called it compare, didn't I? Compare. Actually, yeah, compare. And then let's see, do we have a good name for our county? Oh, thank you, I'll fix that in a minute. County names. It's called counties. So we'll just refer to that one through its code name as well. C-O-M-P-A-R-E. Okay, so it's two different ways to refer to a particular worksheet. I'm not sure that one is better than the other. But I have noticed that for some students, if we go change the name of the worksheet, the code name right here, your code won't actually let you use that until you close Excel and open it again. But I think it'll be okay with the ones that I've created. Go ahead.
Number equals data dot says data set.
Oh yeah, very good. The question is, hey, data. Hey, Professor Allen, clue in here. If we look at what's in data, what's in A1. If we look over here at data set, what's in A1? ANSI. Yeah, you're right. I was on the wrong page. Very good. I need to be using the compare sheet. How do I get there? Yeah, S. So I just bound on the variable S. Maybe we should call it comp or something. Anyway, S, there it is. It's kind of short for a worksheet. It's like, to me, a throwaway variable name that just refers to a worksheet. So the question is, could I have done sheet1.range? If I look over here, here's my compare, and it is sheet 1. Yeah, that would have been okay. That would work okay. I really don't want to just have sheet 1 in my code. Well, that's almost as good as S. So yeah, you're probably better off with a more descriptive name. All right, I'll call this comp, and we'll call it comp down here as well. That way our code will be a little more descriptive. Okay, so now I've got a county number. So I should be able to refer to that, should be able to find that name. Now we know that it is the row number. It coincidentally is the row number, right? What's the number actually? It's the number that is in the list, but because our list starts at 1, I should be able to just do a debug.print. Well, we're going to put it in our compare sheet. Cells row number 1, column number 2, dot value. And I'm going to set that equal to, now I'm going to go look over at my counties sheet. Cells, row number, county number. Column number, I'm in row 1, column 2, I'm trying to put the state name for that. So let me go and look and see what that one is. So I'm coming over to counties, and I'm trying to get this, let's call them C. So whatever row I'm looking at, column number C dot value. Now, I'm also trying to put in the county name, which is in column 2. So I'm just going to use a different, today is different ways to refer to cells. So if I've just given constants in here, the whole power about using cells or range is that I can have an expression in there that I could change. I could use a variable in there, and that variable could then have a different value, and then it could behave differently depending on the context. But this is just hard-coded, so there's another way to do this hard-coded approach. And I think we saw this on the first day of class, but we didn't talk about it. Inside of square brackets, I can just give the reference, and so this would be B2. No quotes or anything. Just square brackets B2. That's the one I want. Over here on compare. Yeah, B2. So I'm putting the state name there. I'm putting the county name here. That looks great. And so I can either put the letter that I want, or I can put the number of the column here. And so I'll just show that other option here as well. So cells can take, it has to have a number for the row number, but the column number can either be a string or a number that corresponds to that column. So far, so good. Question?
Counties, cells, what is counties?
The question is, what is counties? And counties is right here. It's the name of a worksheet. Just like data, it's a pre-named worksheet. It's the code name of a worksheet. Question in the back? Oh, Yep, this should be comp. The question is, hey, what is S over here? You're supposed to change that to comp, and the answer is, yeah, I forgot to do it. Comp. Yeah, so we're creating here a worksheet variable. We're binding that variable onto a particular worksheet, and then we're using that down here. That name now works just the same way as a code name of the worksheet does. It's just an identifier for that particular object. Okay, now before we run this, I'm going to connect this subprocedure onto this text box. I'm going to right-click, or this combo box. I'm going to right-click and choose Assign Macro. And it should be pretty easy. There's only one to choose from. Show county data. So now, when I select that county, it's going to trigger the code that we just wrote. So here's Cherokee County, Dale County, and as I pick it then, it's now bringing in the right county and the right state into my worksheet. If that's not working for you, now is the time to refer to the code or to get Parker to come and give you a hand. Is that a question or need some help? Okay, let's go ahead and pause. The question is, why do we use set? And the answer is, anytime we're going to bind an object variable onto an object, we have to use set. And so normal old variable, just say variable name equals its new value, or let the variable name equal its new value. But it's just a syntax when you're using object variables, it has to be that way. If you'd like to, sometime I can tell you why the developers back in the 90s thought that was a good idea. It turns out it wasn't a good idea. And the good folks at Microsoft have repented of this design decision. But they thought it was a good idea, and so anyway, for us, in terms of consuming this, we just have to say, oh, object variable, we've got to use set to be able to bind it on. Okay, so far, so good. Next, we've got to pull the data. Oh boy. So let's suppose I'm choosing Baldwin County. Why Baldwin? It's the highest one I can pronounce. Shouldn't be that far. Okay, so I've got Baldwin County. So here I am. It's row number 4, or it's county number 4. So let me go look at my data, my county names. And so it's the ANSI number 1003. So I'm going to come back to my data set. Let me find that 1003. Here's the 1003. And that's the data that I need. So I've got to take this first value here in A5, and I've got to put it right here for the county code. It goes right here on the next one down. And then the next cell to the right goes in the next cell down, and so forth. But let's first figure out how are we going to transfer from our county row number 4 to our data row number. How are we going to do it? They're not the same. So how do I make the connection from the one I've chosen here to the data that's over there on my data sheet, my data set sheet? Any thoughts? In the back? Okay, so what you're saying is, so we've got this 4 here. We can take that 4, and we can come over here to county names, and we can find row number 4, and then we've got here 1003. Take that value, come over here to my data set, do a search on column A for 1003, or for that value, whatever it is, and then that's the row that I'm after. That would work. There's a shortcut. Say it louder. It's just one row off. Yeah, these are actually already ordered. They're already sorted by the ANSI number here. But what's the difference here? It's got a header. No, there's a 0. I think there's a 0 over here in the county names too. Yeah, the United States. So actually, when you put in county number 0, it pulls back the data for the whole United States. So yeah, but there's no header here, so it's just off by 1. That's not too bad. So why don't we go ahead and make another variable? We got a county number. Aha! The comment. But if someone adds a row in here or changes the rows here, that's going to break it. Oh, that's right. It would break it. Yeah, don't add a row. Or we could take the first approach given. We just go, once we get that number, go find that number and do it. Then either way is pretty easy. Let's do the, since the concern has been brought up about the row changing, and this really is probably a safer way to do it. If we find the row that has an identifier, let's go ahead and do it that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and declare a row number. So we had county number, this is row number, as, I'll do integer again. This is a row number I like to use long, just because anytime I'm referring to a row, it could possibly go above 32,000, even though this data set won't. Okay, so once I know my county number, I should now be able to do a search. Oh, we got the time to do this, I think. We've seen what happens when you record yourself doing a find. That was part of our example in class where we were recording ourselves doing a web query. And it will find something and modify it. The code that gets recorded assumes that you find it. You're going to find it and then activate it. I don't know if you remember that, but it's this long thing to find it, and then it says .activate at the end. In this case, what happens if we don't find it? What would happen if you look for something you couldn't find and tried to activate it? That's a problem, because it can't find it, so there's nothing to activate. So we're going to do this a little bit more sophisticated. So let's do this. Let's declare a variable called foundCell. FoundCell as a range object. And we'll do this down here after we've got ourselves going here. Now we're going to go get our data. So let me set foundCell equal to, now I've got to give it some range to search. So what range do I want to search for this number? For the number like 1003. Yeah, so I want to look for, if I just look anywhere on the column here, that would be okay. Why not just search the whole worksheet for it? Well, it would take the same amount of time as long as I tell it search columns first, because this is where it's going to look first. But what if it doesn't find it there? It'll take a little more time to search it, but you're talking milliseconds. It would take less than a second to search this whole page. It's not that much data. But what's the problem? It might find that data value in the data. There could be someone who has a resident birth population of 1003. I don't know. Is it in here? What do you think? Is it here? 1003. Well, there's one. I don't know what that is, but there's a 1003. There's a 1003. So it looks like we could be a little safer if we're looking for the full cell to match. But even then, I'm not sure that it's going to be, yeah, it's all over the place. So yeah, I do want to limit it just to column 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So that cell is that sheet is my data sheet, yeah? Data.columns, number 1. That just refers to the whole first column. It's a range object. So data columns 1 dot find. Now here's a little trick. Your IntelliSense help goes away when the editor's just not smart enough to figure out, oh, data, that's a worksheet. Oh, columns, that's got to be a range. It's not smart enough to figure out that's a range. And so I've got found cell here is a range. So I'm just going to do a little trick here. Found cell dot find or dot search. Or no, dot find. Because I've told it that found cell is a range, the editor here it goes, oh, that's a range. I can help you. I can give you the IntelliSense help here. Now, we're not searching found cell. Found cell is what we're going to bind onto the result. But it's just a little trick that while I'm debugging, I can use that to help me get to where I'm looking in the code. There's a question here? Oh, thank you. Yeah. So found cell is supposed to have an underscore in it. So right here, I'm just using this to help me get to the syntax here. Find. What's the first thing? Find what? What am I looking for? I'm looking for my county. I'm looking for that county index, which is, I can read it here. I could make a variable for it. I could just go get it. What do we want to see? Should I put that number, that 1003, into a variable, or should I just go read it right off the worksheet? Variable? The code's a little easier to read if I put it into a variable. It's also a bit more verbose. So I'm going to call this the county ANSI, because that's the ANSI identifier of the county. County ANSI as, these are all numeric. These are numeric codes. So I'll just do as an integer. Okay, so somewhere here, I'm reading something off the counties. So I'll just do it here. County ANSI equals counties cells, CELS, row number, county number, column number 1, dot value. So just like I'm reading the name of the county off of the county sheet, whatever my county number is, column number 2, my ANSI number is that same sheet, cells, same row, column number 1. And that's what I'm going to be looking for over here on my data sheet. So find, what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find my county ANSI. What am I looking after? I don't care. What am I looking in? I don't care. What I'm looking at, that's important. What I'm looking at is XL whole. So the XL whole is just a constant that it knows to look for to say, oh, you're trying to find a match on the whole cell. You don't want to find it as a subset. What would happen if I'm looking for the United States of America? What's that one? That's number 0. Well, it would find it first there. Actually, it'd probably be okay because it's always going to be smaller. Maybe. Anyway, I want to make sure I'm searching for the whole thing. XL whole, comma, what's this next one? Search order, doesn't really matter. Search direction, I don't care. It's going to go look for them all. Match case, it's new numbers, there's no case. Match byte, I don't even know what that means. Search formatted, I don't care. Okay, so since I've got nothing but these commas at the end, I don't need those commas, they're all optional. I only need commas if I'm skipping something. And so I'll go ahead and close that off. Ooh. Oh, so that was just so I get the syntax. I'm not actually looking on found cell. I'm trying to get this find to come up here on the line before. So what I'm doing is I am saying I'm going to set my found cell equal to the results of this. Look on the data sheet, look in column number 1, and find whatever my county ANSI is, and defaults here, but then look through the whole column. Look for the whole cell to match. Questions? COUNT. Why? Thank you. In truth, that wasn't a question. It was more of a comment. It was a welcome comment, but it wasn't a question. All right. All right. Let me go ahead and put a stop here, so we can just kind of look and see what's going on here. So I should be able. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. I could run it by going and picking another county, but I'm going to run it right here just by pressing play. Now, I would like to see if I have found that cell. So let me just print off my found cell. Now, found cell is a range. So what should I print? Don't want to just print the object. Found cell. What should I print here? Dot. I can do value. Looks like I found it because it's got the right value. Or I can do what? Address. And if I just put found cell without putting a dot value, it'll go, oh, you're asking for an object. You can't print an object. You must mean the default property, and it will guess the property correctly. Okay, so I've found it, so that's good. Well, let me do this. There's another way for me to look at this. And that is, rather than looking at itself, I want to ask, what kind of object is it? Type name. And when I run that, it's going to tell me this is a range. Now, you might think, well, of course it's a range. You declared it as a range. Found cell is a range. But this will only return range if that object variable is bound onto a range object. Let's see what happens before I run this. So I'm going to put a stop in here before I get to binding this found cell on. Okay, so now I haven't tried to bind found cell onto anything. I've declared it as a range, but now if I ask the type name of it, it says it's not bound on it's not bound on anything. The truth is it's bound onto a special object in VBA called nothing. There actually is an object called nothing. It's currently, and all, when you create a new object variable, by default, they get bound on to the nothing object. So I'm asking, what kind of object is this bound onto? It is bound onto the object called nothing, or an object of type nothing. So what happens if we try to find something that it can't find? Let me come here and I'm going to concatenate onto this something that will make it so it can't find it. There's no identifier that's going to be 1003 and then some D's after it. So, but this line should still execute okay. So it still executes. But now, what is it bound onto? What do you think? Is it bound onto a range or is it bound onto nothing? It's still bound onto nothing because it tried to find a county with the number, tried to find the value 1003 DDDDD, and it couldn't find it. It looked for something it couldn't find. So anytime we're doing a search, we should check to be sure we found it, and that's what we're doing here. And this difference here, reporting either range or reporting nothing, will let us look at that. So I'm going to come here and say, if found cell, let me do if the type name of found cell is equal to, do I want to look for failure or success? Let's look for failure. If the type name is equal to nothing, then we're going to do something. What are we going to do? Message box. Some problem happened. That's enough for our message box. And here I'm going to say exit sub. We talked about exit sub? We talked about exit do, exit for. There's also exit sub, which just says, get me out of this whole sub procedure. I'm really never expecting that to happen. I'm expecting that when you choose that value, we're going to find it. But since we're trying to anticipate the user doing something unexpected, such as changing the order or adding a blank row in here somewhere, let's anticipate the possibility that the user has deleted the data that we're after. So now we'll put up some message, we'll exit the sub procedure, and we won't do whatever's next. Go ahead. Is it 1 equal sign or 2? If type name found cell equals, in VBA, it's always 1 equal sign. It's the same expression that we use the equal sign both to assign a value to a variable, as we're doing up here, and to check for equality. In most languages, those are different symbols. In VBA, it's the same symbol, and the interpreter can look at the context and decide what to do with it based on the context, what's happening around it. Question here? So if you're printing the type name of found cell in the immediate window and it tells you empty, that means it's not, your code's not running. So for this to report either nothing or range, the code has to be running. So I'm in break mode right here. So I had that stop. So if I stop my code, it's now no longer running. And now if I ask for it, it's going to say, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know about any variable with that name. When it's running and we're in break mode, it goes, aha! I've got that variable, and that's bound on either to the nothing object or it's bound onto a range. But if it's not allocated in memory, what it says is, this must be a new variable. It creates what type would it be? The interpreter will actually create a variable in this expression right here. It looks at this and it goes, print, yeah, I got it. Type name, I got it. Found cell. And because the code's not running down here, it goes to found cell and it goes, I have no idea what that is. The only thing it could possibly be is a variable. And we'll create a variable of type variant. And what's the default value for a variant type? Empty. Yep. Okay, there's another question over here somewhere. All right. I've been defeated by Google. I'll just Google it. All right. Okay, so now if we ever make it to this point, we know we found the data. Because if we didn't find the data line, we would put up a message box and we'd get out of here. I better get rid of this little and DDD on the end. We'll never find it. Okay, so now at this point, let's go ahead and bind on our variable what do we call it? We call it row number. So let's just say row no equals found cell dot row. So it's going to find that value somewhere. We're going to ask what row did you find that value on, and now we know the row number of the data. Whew. At this point, we know the row, but we've got to get this data into the right location. Any thoughts on how to do it? So if we're after Baldwin County, we've got to take all of this data from this row here. So one approach is to say, let's just copy and do a transpose, a paste transpose. Copy, paste, copy, paste, special transpose. Yeah, I like it. So we got to figure out what that whole range is. And now the question is, how are we going to know what data to take? Okay, so Control-Shift-Right. And that will get it. Now, Control-Shift-Right will pull this data in. We'll get the whole row of data under two conditions. What are they? I'm not sure why I said two conditions. Maybe a better way to ask is, under what condition would this not get the whole row of data? Oh, yeah, if there's an empty cell somewhere in the middle. So let's look at this data. Is there ever an empty cell? And the answer is, yeah, maybe. It turns out from the United States Census Bureau, they're not going to give us an empty cell. That would work just fine. So that's one approach. Were there other thoughts on how we're going to get this row of data? Just take the whole row. We could take that whole row, and then when we do a paste transpose, there'd be plenty of room because the worksheet's always longer than it is wide. Once you start doing that, you got to realize, oh, you might be pasting into no man's land where there isn't any existing rows. But that would work okay. But as it turns out, VBA is actually going to go through and copy. It's not going to look at that and go, oh, those are all empty. It's going to go through and all 16,000 of them is going to write them out. And that will be a noticeable delay if we just do it all. So let's look at a couple of different options for this as well. So let's just put here option 1. So we're going to try to copy that cell. So we're going to refer to that range. So what sheet are we on? Our data sheet. Dot. Okay. So this is going to be a two-dimensional range. I think we've seen this in class before. This is a multi-cell contiguous range. We're going to start at a cell, end at a cell. So to do that, we're going to say range. And then in open parentheses, we'll tell it which cell to start with, which cell to end with. Which cell do we start with? Data dot cells. Row number, row no. Column number, 1. That is my first cell. Whoops, data dot cells. Now, what's my end cell? Well, the suggestion that came is control right arrow. So start at that first one, start at that same place. I'm just going to copy this. I'm better at copying than I am at pasting, or typing. I'm actually about as good as copying as I am at pasting. Now, from there, I'm going to say end XL to right. End XL to right. And that should refer to a particular range. Now, I can't just have that range there on the sheet, so let me just, that is the value that I'm trying to copy, so let's just say dot copy. So that would copy it. This right here, last time we went over the midterm and talked about what questions were fair and what questions weren't fair. There weren't a whole lot that people thought weren't fair, but I asked a couple of questions about this very XL and whoops. Yeah, I got to put some parentheses in here. That's what that was. It was that L was supposed to be parentheses. This idea of saying I've got a range that starts with one cell, ends with another cell. Then There was at least one question that expected you to understand that syntax on the midterm. And some of the students thought that wasn't fair to expect them to know that. I think I put it in the study guide, but since it's kind of fresh in my mind, it's still a little sore spot with me. I'm letting you know, unless I decide to throw that question out as I redo the test this year, a question on this very line is currently on deck to be on the midterm. It's queued up and ready to go. All right. So we'll copy that. Now we just have to figure out where to paste transpose this data. That shouldn't be too hard. We've got a sheet. What's our sheet called that we're putting the data on? Comp. Comp. Oh boy. Comp. Dot cells. What row do I want to go on? I think I want to go to a particular cell. I want to paste transpose this right here in B3. So instead of cells, let's say range. Range B3. Dot paste special. And there's paste type. This is transpose. Paste special. One of these is going to be about transpose is way over here. Probably true. So I'm skipping by some of the other optional parameters about whether I'm pasting values or formulas or whatever. I'm just going to say true. Or the other way to do it is to name that parameter. That's called transpose. So I can say transpose colon equals true. I can either give it its value by its position. It's the fourth one over, so 3 commas to skip whatever was before that, and then true. Or I can say it has a name. Transpose equals true. This should work. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Let's see if it does the trick. I'm going to choose a different county, Bibb, Alabama, and the data for Bibb now comes in, and it's all lined up right where I can see it. There's the resident population under 18 years. 58. That's great. Okay, we're going to look at a couple other options, though, for doing this. Option number 2. Option number 2 will work even if there is data that's not a non-contiguous data. Instead of saying we're going to start at we're going to start on row number 1, or start on column number 1, but instead of going from column 1 and going to the right, let's do this. We're going to be on that row, but column number, some big column number. What's the biggest column number? Yeah, I don't know either. But we can ask it. We can say, just tell us what your highest column number is. Columns.count. That's the highest column number. Now, if we try to go to right for that, we're in trouble. What do we got to do? Yeah, to left. Now, this one assumes there's no extra data after the data that I'm after. So that's the case here. I got nothing else over there, so go all the way to the end, snap back here till I bump into some data, and that way, if I've got some blank data in there, it's okay. Because I'm not doing a control right, I'm going all the way in, coming back in, and defining that particular range. Okay. Question?
So what if we're planning on having somebody really try to just mess us up? And I'm trying to think, like, what's the way that we don't have to make any assumptions?
So, hold on a second. So the question is, what if someone's really working hard here? And we don't want to have to deal with any of these assumptions. Is there a safer way? And I think, yeah, probably the safest way here would be, even if I've got extra data out here, probably the safest way is to say, let's come up to the top. I'm not going to have any blank column names. I might have a blank value. And so here, if I was to come in here and do an end or a control right arrow, that will be my last column name. So if I could use that to figure out the column number that I'm after, and then use that column number as the one that I'm after. That would work as well. Do you want to see that in code? Okay, question in the back? The question is, are testing frameworks for VBA that are fairly accessible? And the answer is, if there are, I do not know about them. So this is something that probably some people have given some thought to, and there may be something out there, but I'm not aware of what they are. Question here? So the question is, why do we have end XL to left? Let's look at what we're doing here. So let's just parse through the syntax here. So we're using the range method that says I'm going to give it one cell to start with, another cell to end with. We've got the same starting cell as we had before. The starting cell here is whatever row number we just found our data on, column number 1. That's where we're starting. We've got to find the last column of data. So we're saying, all right, look at the data sheet, look at the cell. What cell do we want? Whatever row number we're on. Which column do we want? Column number 64,000. So if I ask columns.count, it can tell me how many columns there are on the worksheet. And that's the very last column over there. And so from there, if we're all the way out there to the right, then we want to say XL to left. What we're doing is we're saying come all the way out here and then come back until we bump into some data. Okay? Seems like there was one other way that I wanted to talk about doing this transpose. But I forgot what it is. Maybe I'll remember it and we'll come back to it. Let's check and make sure this code works okay. So I should be able to come to compare. Okay, so the other question is I could do it in some kind of loop, and as I move over one, I could paste the other one down. The question would take forever. The comment is it would take forever, and the answer is no. It would take less than half a second. It would take less than a third of a second. It won't take very long, but it will be noticeably longer. Yeah, in fact, we used to do that in this example, but then someone said, why don't you paste transpose? And thought that's cheating, but I guess we could do it that way. Okay. Oh boy, we got 10 minutes, and so far we're only getting one county. I want to be able to do an arbitrary number of counties. How am I going to do it? What do I have to do to be able to make it so that when I choose this, it doesn't just blindly go into column B? Make some variable so that everywhere I'm talking about column B, I could figure out what the next column is, and then update all my other lines of code that are dealing with this column and have it go over to column C or column D or whatever. That would work. There's a faster trick. There's a simpler trick. Any thoughts on what it might be? Insert a column, yeah. What if we just always insert a column right here? Any data that's there, we'll push over, and then then our code's ready to go. One more line to add. Well, it ends up being 2 lines, but one more line to add, and we're in good shape. So yeah, let's just start off by saying once we've gotten to here to where we know we've found the data, let's just go ahead and push that column in there. So that's on my compare sheet. COMP dot columns. Which column do I want? Column number 2 dot insert. Did that kind of quick. Let's go back. So name of my worksheet, comp dot columns 2 insert. So that should just be the same as selecting that and pressing insert. Control plus. Or control plus. There we go. So it inserts it, but what's the problem? No, I think we're still pasting in the right place. Where we're pasting in, that's where we want to paste. That's the problem, yeah. It assumes the size from the cell next to it. So let me go ahead and change this. I've got Cherokee, Alabama. Let's compare that to Clifton, or Choctaw, Alabama. Oh, I put that too soon. Yeah, let's go ahead and, let me go ahead and just move my insert a little higher. So I'll put that as the very first thing that I do. But then after we're done putting all the data in, let's just go ahead and auto-fit that column. Comp columns 2 dot autofit. So there's Coleman, Alabama, compared to Hale, Alabama, compared to whoever else I want to do. So now I can pretty easily say, who do I want to compare? Cue these up, I can look at them. In fact, if I want to, I should be able to pretty easily say, I want to compare on this dimension those labels, insert a bar chart or column chart. And now I can see here's Perry, Hale, Coleman, Lowndes. And in fact, we're going to have a day where we work with charts. We'll build on this example and we'll see how to generate these charts automatically. So pick the data that you want, we'll build a chart for you, and you're good to go. So without too much trouble, we've taken this worksheet that was data that's really difficult to work with, and we've made a really pretty user-friendly interface. Give yourself a pat on the back. Other questions? Can I go back to the code? The answer is yes. Always glad to go back to the code. Does column have a width property? The answer is yes. Let's just take a look real quick, though. It's a little more complex than you might think. So let me ask for, even if a cell has a width property, active cell.width. But it's a read-only property. It tells you how wide the column is. If you want to set it, you can say active cell.entire column. This gets me from whatever cell I'm on, expands it to the whole column. It has a property called column width. Unfortunately, it's on a different scale. Column width is like a number of characters, how wide the column is. Width is like how many, it's not pixels, but it's another measurement that's more similar to pixels that tells you how wide it is. Now, the reason it's not pixels is because you can zoom into the worksheet. The number of pixels it takes to show that same column will change. So yeah, you could change the column width of the column to set it to a fixed particular size. Boy, how unusual to be done 5 minutes early. It makes me think I've really forgotten something, especially given the fact I wasn't planning to do some of what we did. Any other questions? Question here? The question is, instead of auto-fitting this, setting this to a fixed size column, no problem. I'll leave both lines in. We'll auto-fit it, and then we'll set it to the size. So we're just going to say dot column width equals 15. And so that's roughly 15 characters. Back in the day when the column width property was invented, or at least when it was first conceived, I don't know if it was invented, we were using fixed width, we were actually using columns, we were using characters that were fixed width. And so you could really say that it'll fit 15 characters, doesn't matter what you're putting in, it'll fit. But of course you put I's versus W's in there, they're now, the fonts we use are different size, and so it's an approximation. Let's do one more thing. And that is, if we see this kind of flickers when it does that resizing. And it doesn't flicker terribly, but I can kind of see it bounce out. I would like it not to do that. And so that's possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and say, listen, as soon as we start running code here, I'm going to set a setting of the application. Application dot screen updating equals false. So by telling it not to update the screen, we're saying, listen, it takes some effort to change what's showing on the screen. In fact, what do you say? Would you take it takes a little effort or a lot of effort to update what's showing on the screen? It actually takes a lot of effort. What's the most expensive laptop you can buy today? What's it designed for? Gaming, yeah. The most expensive laptops or computers, they're designed for gaming. Why? What's so special about gaming? What's the key for gaming? Frames per second. How can we get that many frames per second? And so so we're talking about refreshing what's on the screen as fast as we possibly can. That gets expensive. And that's, beyond just how this will look, if you're doing something that's changing what's happening on the screen a lot, it can really slow down. So I'm saying, listen, just don't worry. Change what's on the screen in your mind. But don't update the screen until I tell you to update the screen. And how do we tell it to update the screen? We just turn screen updating on back to true. So application dot screen updating equals true. So now it's going to tell it to auto fit. It's going to do the insert. It's going to go wide. Then it's going to auto fit, bring it back down. And then it's going to push it back to whatever 15 columns is. It's making those 3 changes, but now we won't see it. It'll all happen logically, and then once it's done, it'll update the screen. And so now, watch as you might, you won't see that flicker wide. It'll just push in the column that you're after. Okay, that's enough for one day, folks. What do we have? Oh, there's some homework due tonight. Any questions on the homework? All right, thanks for coming. Class dismissed.